Welcome to the Press Box. I'm Ryan Thorburn, joined as always by Steve Mims. Oregon is getting ready for Washington Week, which has been a fun time for the Ducks for over a decade now, 11 straight against the Huskies, but it seems like there might be a change in the guard here as Oregon's 3-3 and Washington's coming off a big win against USC. How do you see this one unfolding, Steve?
Yeah, the Dawgs are drooling. We saw up in Seattle, when 2 years ago when Oregon won, a bunch of fans took off their shirts and showed Decade of Decadence t-shirts. Might be a little bit questionable to wear those up there this year, but we'll see. I think that for Oregon, the question becomes the quarterback. I mean, is Vernon Adams. We saw him throw well enough in warm-ups on Saturday that we almost thought that he might get the start. I tend to think he gets the start, and if he's healthy, I think we see a different type of Oregon offense. If not, interesting to see if they, it seems like they've settled in on Jeff Locke between the battle between him and Alley. See if they can make some improvements there if Vernon can't go.
Chris Peterson is expecting Vernon Adams. Of course, the Oregon Ducks aren't saying if that's the case, but he is practicing, and I think he's going to give it a go. And why not? He had 7 touchdowns and 475 yards passing against Washington last year on the same field. Like you said, he looked pretty good in warm-ups without a glove. He had a lot of velocity on it. It seemed to me like as Scott Frost is watching that, Vernon's like, hey, look at this, think about it. Probably wise to hold him out until this game, but I think at this point in the season, you might as well see what he's got. And, I think he's got enough to make their offense, a lot better than it already is with a great rushing game.
Yeah, I think the common thinking a couple weeks ago was you rest him for 3 weeks in the bye and then you bring him back for Arizona State. The loss to Washington State certainly changes. If that was the feeling, certainly changes with the loss to Washington State because you're really looking at this game might be the one that determines, can you believe it or not, that Oregon goes to a bowl game or not? Because if they can't beat Washington State and they lose at Washington, you look ahead of the schedule, where are you going to find 3 more wins? So it's going to be pretty important for them to get a win over Washington, figure that they win the Civil War at the end of the year, and then they only need to kind of find 1 win out of those 4 in the middle. Of course, Oregon's goals are higher than that, but it is a realistic option right now that this Washington game becomes pretty important just to continue the season potentially.
Yeah, and the focus, understandably, is on quarterback, and we're guilty of that. You lose Marcus Mariota, one of the greatest players in college football history, and now you have 3 guys, kind of a muddled situation. But the real story is the downfall of the defense. Without that, powerful offense to lead the way, these guys are really struggling. 124th against the pass. It was a recipe for disaster against Washington State. They still almost won, but at the end, Luke Falk was able to make that play at the end of regulation, and really a devastating loss. And these guys, may have a confidence issue now in not just the inexperience and missing guys to injuries.
Yeah, if they look at the stats, they're going to have a confidence issue because they've given up. Not only are they last in the conference in pass defense, they're last by 65 yards, and it's almost a quarter more than anybody else. They've given up 21 touchdown passes. Nobody else in the conference has given up more than 11. There are 5 teams that have combined to give up 21. So, yeah, if they're looking at the numbers, and certainly we've seen they've tried to make some changes. We've seen 4 starting safeties, 4 starting cornerbacks this year. They just haven't been able to find a solution, and it's hard to think at this point that a real true solution's coming. I don't know how much you can do in practice when you're trying to game plan for somebody else. They kind of are what they are right now, and they have to hope that they can find an offense that can cover up some of their warts as it has in the past.
Maybe a little bit of a reprieve this week as Washington has a freshman quarterback, a freshman left tackle, and they're kind of leaning on the Pac-12's best defense so far, and having a balanced approach with a passing game and a decent running game. But this is an offense that isn't exactly lighting it up this year.
Yeah, and I asked Chris Peterson today. I said, when you look at them on film and see their secondary, does that kind of change what you do? I mean, do you alter your game plan and suddenly have to come out and throw a bunch like everybody else has been able to do? He was kind of tepid about that, said, no, I mean, you kind of game plan, but you don't go away from what you do to do something different. However, I think we're going to see that. I don't know what the most passes that Browning's thrown this year are, but I'm pretty sure he's going to eclipse that against Washington on Saturday. That just is simply the formula that everybody's going to use until it slows down.
It seems like this is a great spot for Washington. I tend to lean the other way. Everyone's going against Oregon, and they're on the road, and Pac-12 teams seem to win on the road against each other. So I think it's going to be a great game. I think Vernon Adams plays and the Ducks pull out a close one, but we'll find out late Saturday night. Until then, thanks for tuning in.